Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at Garuda Xfce LTS version. The new Soaring is out now, and Xfce is something that I really want to check out thanks to Mustafab. Mustafab said, Jack, the new Garuda Xfce LTS on NVIDIA is the bomb and actually works 100%. Wow. Only one issue, and that isn't their issue, and that is Pamac. Pamac is having issues again, so install Yay and install the Pamac that is actually working. So I think what Mustafab is referring to there, the package manager GUI, the one that's working is Pamac-AUR. So yes, installing Yay will get you right into Pamac-AUR, and you can install that if you're having issues. Whether we're still having issues with that or not, I don't know. We'll have to find out. So here I am out at Garuda Linux website, and it's been a long time since I reviewed Garuda Linux. I did a few reviews in the past, and with Garuda I reviewed the Dragonized version, which is pretty awesome, and then I also did one on LXQt KWin, and that was a great review too. I really loved that release that came out there. That was pretty awesome. And now this Xfce LTS really has me kind of intrigued. I especially like the fact that they're using the LTS kernel. Of all the different releases that they got, this is the only one that's using the LTS, which currently I believe is at 5.15. So I'm going to hit this download link real quick, and that could be why the NVIDIA is working so well with Garuda Linux. Now I got to tell you right up front, I don't have any NVIDIA hardware at all on my systems, so I can't really test it in the sense of NVIDIA like Mustafab did. And so, yes, that's one thing that would be different for me. I don't really have any NVIDIA hardware because I use namely Linux, and that's the main reason I shy away from NVIDIA. I usually avoid their hardware just because of the fact that I use Linux. However, that is good to know that it is also working well. And like I said, the LTS may have something to do with it, given that they're probably going to have better compatibility the way they have it set up. Really nice. And so here's our minimum requirements. This is our download page. And so this is a very thorough page. They really thought this out really well. Has all the information you need on here to burn your ISO, if you've never done this before, onto a disk and so forth. Garuda Downloader is handy that they have this right here, so I really like that. And there's the Dragonized that I did a review on once before. Still awesome, I'm sure. And as you can see, they got a lot of different releases here. And here's the Xfce. This is the one I'm really interested in. So this is, even from the picture, looks great. And like I was saying, this is the only one that has the LTS kernel. The other ones are using the Zen, I believe, kernel. So with the LTS kernel, I imagine we're probably not going to get so many updates constantly. So that will kind of slow things down and make it a little more mellow from that point, I think. I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and I'm just going to pick up a ISO right direct from the FOSS host, download it, and then we're going to put it on real hardware, because one thing they mentioned on the Garuda website is that it doesn't perform as well in a virtual machine. So I'm going to put it on a real machine, and we're going to load this baby in and install it. Okay, I'm going to download this, and then I'll be right back. Okay, here I am. I'm at the boot screen, and I'm just going to shrink down a little bit while this is booting up, and then slide off to the side over here. That way, I'm kind of out of the way. So this is our live version. We're booting in, and hopefully it's gonna boot. I'm kidding, of course it's gonna boot. And so here we are, and I'm just gonna slide up, and wow, this just looks beautiful already. Of course, I would kind of expect that out of Garuda. Beautiful menu here, and then here's our welcome screen. Nice. So right away, just a gorgeous Xfce right off the bat. And I'm going to hit install Garuda Linux right here, and we're just going to get right down to business and install this baby. I am on a live machine right now, real hardware, and so I'm going to hit next, and the time zone is good, so I'll go next again, and we're good with the default keyboard settings. And now what I'm going to do is something a little bit different. Instead of erase disk, I'm going to go with manual partitioning, because I have a home partition that's separate from the actual Linux partition. So here I have a FAT32 for our boot, and then our Btrfs, which is 60 gigs allocated for Linux. And so I'm going to just hit format on that, and then I'm going to keep the Btrfs, and then select our mount point as the root there, the slash. And then our swap is good. And then this is our home partition here, which has about 872.5 gigs of space. So I'm going to keep that because I definitely don't want to format it because I have stuff on it already. And then I'm going to mount that as home, hit OK. And now we have both our partitions, and I allocated the big one as our home partition. So now it's separate from our Linux install. And so I'm just going to hit OK there. Whoops, I forgot to set my boot here on the FAT32. So I need to go here to the mount point. And you can format that if you want, but usually you don't have to. Then I'm just going to go with boot EFI and then hit OK. There, that's better. And now I can fill in the other stuff, like my silly name Toadwake. And then down here I'll give it a password and then another one to confirm, and that's all good. All right, so I'm going to hit next, and then this is a confirmation. I just want to double check that it's not going to format my home partition, and it's all good. It's just going to format the Linux install, and then I'm going to hit install now. Nice. And so having a separate home partition is nice because then if you ever have to reinstall your Linux, you don't have to touch your home partition. You just reinstall Linux and it's all clean and your home partition's still good and your home folder. So you can pick up where you left off a lot easier. Okay, and now here we are. It all finished. So I'm going to just hit restart here. And if everything went well, we'll be into a new install. So here I am, and it looks like it's booting. Wow, look at that splash screen. That is just over the top awesome. I love that. That is too cool. I would keep that just for that. Okay, I'm logged in now. And so here we are at our home screen here, and we have our welcome screen, and this looks gorgeous right off the bat. Wow. I love the dark theming by default. And then we have a setup assistant here, which is pretty cool. I'm going to click that. And so it's recommending to update. So I'll just say yes. That's always a good place to start before you do anything. And so we'll let this update. It's going to start off by refreshing the mirror list. That way we get the quickest mirrors right off the bat. And so here we go, and it's starting the full upgrade, so I'm going to just press enter. We're all updated. So now let's do the post installation, see what kind of stuff we got. So Samba support, that's good. Let's add the wallpapers, of course. And then font support. So I'm going to add the Asian fonts and the simplified Chinese, and that looks good, so I'm going to hit OK. And then let's click GNOME firmware, and then the app image launcher is always handy. Pamac, the GTK, the one that Mustafa said was broke. And then we don't need any extra kernels, so I'm going to skip that. And then let's go with free. No, not free. Only Office. That's a pretty decent one too. I like that one. It's a nice alternative to Libre, and to me seems really close to Office. Then we'll go with Firefox and Chromium and hit OK. I guess I didn't have to check Firefox because it's already installed, but it should skip over that anyway. And then don't need any of those email programs. Don't usually use those mail clients. And then Telegram, there's probably nothing on there that I would use, either the social media stuff. And then we have FileZilla. That's a good choice. I'll go with that. And these are extra softwares in addition to what's already installed by default. And I also hit the Qubit torrent there. And then maybe some audio software. I like Audacity, so I'll go with that. And then maybe up here I'll click Lollipop to the GNOME music player. I think it's already got one on there by default, but I'll just add that in. And then here we got Shotcut. Nice. I'm going to go with that. And then OBS Studio and VLC. These are all things I would install on a daily driver. So let's just go for it. And then GIMP, Inkscape, Blender is probably something I would use. So I'll click that. And Krita. Why not? We'll just go with that for fun. Wow, Hypnotics, I like that. That's something that's usually available out of the Linux Mint repos, so that's cool. Shortwave, I like that. It's a nice radio app. And then down here, I think that's probably good. So I'll just hit OK. Nice, these are our development apps here. And so if I was going to load some on here, I'd probably do something like Visual Studio Code and so forth. but really no need here. And then nice VirtualBox, GNOME boxes, Virt Manager. I might as well pop that on. Why not? And box, that's kind of cool. Run Android apps on Linux. Wow. I absolutely have no use for that at all, but it's kind of cool just to see it there. And then we got Droid Cam and Variety Wallpaper and some cool extras there. Nothing that I really probably need right there. So I'm just going to hit OK and then put in my password. And then I'll just go with the default, I guess, with 1. And I'm going to hit yes there. It says there's a font conflict. So do you want to remove the other one? And I'm just saying yes. And then yes to proceed. All right. And so now that's going to do its thing and update. And hopefully it won't take all year. If it does, I'll see you next year. Nah, I'm kidding. So, and you can see we got all these simultaneous downloads. So we got a lot of the Pamac is already set up there for simultaneous downloads. And that really greatly speeds things up when it comes to updating and upgrading and so forth. So I like that. Very nice. And we had a lot of software in there. So this is really downloading fast. I'm liking to see that because everything that I selected there is a lot of stuff. If I remember right, it said like 7.5 gigs of stuff. Probably that and box, that's about a 2.5 gig download all by itself. I really shouldn't have checked that. That was kind of dumb. But hey, if you can't do something dumb once in a while, then you're not human. Even though I'm not actually human. But don't tell anyone. Looks like it's done downloading stuff. So now it's just kind of loading in the packages. And we're kind of getting in the home stretch here, so it's almost done. Nice. And it's a lot of stuff. I probably checked too many things, actually. But it's coming right along here, so I think it's only going to be in a few more seconds, and it ought to be good to go. We'll put in the password. We'll put in the password, hit enter. All right. You want to remove the setup assistant? I think I'll just keep it for now. What the heck? I don't know why, but you never know when you might need it back. So let's look at our menu and see what we got here. That actually installed quite fast. I'm going to stretch this menu upwards so everything fits. And then I'm just going to widen it a little bit. And it will remember those settings, so that'll stay. There's that and box. And then here we got all our accessories, development. There's Blender, Inkscape, Krita. Wow, nice. And GIMP, of course. Then Chromium, cool. That added in. And then our multimedia apps. I think we downloaded Lollipop there and Audacity and Hypnotics. And then there's our OnlyOffice. Went in just fine. Our scanning, HP drivers for printing. And then there's our Garuda Assistant. This is cool. So Garuda Assistant, it looks like, wow, got a lot of things to choose from. These are all kinds of different things that normally you would have to go in and manually config, like through the console or a config file, but it's all right in here where you can make it really easy if you have to go in and tweak things easily. And it looks like ButterFS and Snapper has been moved to ButterFS Assistant. Nice. Then we have our system components here. So if you need to add other things, you can right here very easily. And these are all the stuff that are checked. But if you wanted to add in Firewall D or something like that, or iBus, if you want to use some Pinyin, for example, since we installed some simplified Chinese, that's handy to have the iBus there activated. And then you got Jack support, ALSA support, just checkbox away. Nice. There's our system specs and other diags. So I'm really liking that. And I like the reset configs there at the bottom too. Then here we can go into our Garuda Gamer. So if you're like a gamer and real into gaming, this is all the stuff you would probably need on Linux to make your gaming experience really streamlined. And there's Play on Linux. That's a nice front end for Wine and really is a good way to get things pre-configured for you. And there's Wine and Wine Trick, so I would actually hit those. Bottles is another kind of like a front end for Wine, which is really cool. And I think DistroTube did a review on Wine on Bottles not too long ago, which is pretty good. That was a good video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And then over here on Tools, we got, there's OBS in Studio and VLC installed, but also Piper and a lot of other things that you might want if you're really into gaming. I don't game that much, so A lot of these I don't use, and I'm not super familiar with a lot of them. Here we got all the different categories. So lots of things for the casual user, RPG, platformers, racing. Wow. First person and third person shooters, strategy. Cool. Turn-based, tycoon management, simulation, visual novels and stealth. Wow. Roguelike and puzzle games. So all kinds of categories in here that you can go in and it'll just install an array of games in those categories. And then here we have our emulators. I love these emulators. Andbox is in there because I hit that for some unknown reason. And then we got MAME. That's my favorite emulator right there. That's an arcade emulator. I really like MAME, so that's really cool. And then just about every other emulator under the sun that you can imagine. Wow, Nintendo and Sony and everything else. So that's just too cool. One thing I like about Garuda is they just kind of have everything for you. And then over here we got our Garuda Network Assistant, boot options. So if you want to go in here and change your boot options, this makes it really easy. You don't have to go in and do the grub config and all that. It's all nice GUI front end. So for example, the timeout is 5 seconds. I can lower that to 1 and just have it boot up quicker. And then you can change stuff here like your theme and so forth. But I really wouldn't change a thing, because other than maybe the boot up to 1 second just to make it really fast. And then I just updated grub. Easy peasy. Did it all in just a few seconds. So that really makes upgrading your grub and changing your settings really easy. So here I'm installing Quikaccess. So Quikaccess, I think, is some kind of menu that will give you easy access to certain apps, probably commonly used ones. So I'm going to install that, and let's just see what that is, because it looks kind of cool. I'm going to close there, and there we go. So now we got screenshot, recorder. Yeah, that is handy. So I could open up Quikaccess and just have easy access here to and there's mic settings, brightness. So not only to apps, but also to different utilities. Like if I needed to change my brightness, which I usually do when I install, I like having access to that. So if I went down here and hit this guy, I'm kind of in the way, so I'm going to slide up. And so here we can kind of adjust our brightness up and down. I don't know if that's really showing up in OBS or not, but there you can kind of get your brightness to a comfortable level. I usually have it around 60% or so, because my screen's pretty bright. And so here on our welcome screen, we also got our chaotic AUR, and then our add remove software, our Pamac. So this is the one that Mustafa was saying was having issues. I'm not really quite sure what he's referring to. Might have something to do maybe with downloading off the AUR. But personally, for what little I use Pamac, I haven't really noticed anything. Typically, I install out of the console anyway, so probably something that I'm missing there. But like if we go into our preferences, then here are all our preferences, and by default I would keep mostly all these just the way they are. It looks like it's set for 4 parallel downloads there, and disk space, that's all good. And then here's our third party, and AUR support's enabled by default, so I'm happy for that. And then my build directory for AUR packages by default is in the temp, but remember my Linux install is 60 gigs and my home folder is 870 plus gigs. So I'd rather put my temp folder in my home partition. So I'm just going to make a temp file here in my home folder here. And then that way I have a lot more space. I'm not using up space on my Linux partition, which is only 60 gigs. So if I had a whole bunch of stuff installed and I was getting low on space, that temp folder could become kind of a pain. So I like to have that on the home partition where it's bigger. And then I just kind of went automatically there, but I clicked on Blender, and here's all these different apps. And here's in Blender, we got a nice overview visually of the software. So I'm liking that. And then Chaotic, let's see what that is. Okay, so that's a link to the Chaotic homepage. Chaotic is already installed by default here on Garuda, which I really like. I love Chaotic because Chaotic is like this big automatic repo that goes out and pulls everything off the AUR and then builds it into binaries for you. So those binaries are already available. So that way you don't have to have it built, or if you use something like Yay, Yay still has to build it for you. Whereas on Chaotic, it's already built So it's really cool. So let's just kind of take a look at some of our stuff here. So under accessories, we got our modem manager and mouse pad, onboard, a lot of cool extras in addition to normally what you see on most distros for Xfce. And these are onboard preferences. So it looks like some extra preferences available that you can adjust. And I'm not really sure what that's related to exactly. So yeah, I don't know. And then our graphics, we were in here before. And so really, in addition to the stuff that I installed, it also had Pitivi in here, which is another video editor. And Pitivi is kind of cool. Pitivi almost sounds like patooey, like when you gotta spit. Patooey. That's the low class way of doing it. Now, if you're like really high class, then Pitivi sounds more like a more high class way to spit, like Pitivi. Yeah. Okay, Jack, focus. Enough with the silliness. And then here we have our office, and like I said before, only Office is what we installed. And then under settings, lots of choices here, which is really great. I love choices. And then here under system, we got our Alacrity and Garuda boot options, which we were in. FC ticks, which is kind of for our language keyboard stuff. And then system settings and HTOP. So let's take a look at our HTOP. So it's showing about 1.45 gigs there in RAM. I believe that Garuda uses a ZRAM, so it does look like it's a lot more taxing on your resources than it actually is. Typically on Xfce, you'll see about 670-ish, 700 megs, and there you saw 1.4 gigs. And so a lot of that, I believe, is reserved for ZRAM, but not completely reserved. What I mean by that is that ZRAM can be tapped into if the system needs it. So if something's starting to hog a lot of RAM and it needs more, that ZRAM that's being set aside is not untouchable. So it can just go in there and use that RAM anytime it wants to. And then, of course, it taps into the ZRAM when you're running apps, and so the apps run more efficiently and quicker. At least that's how I understand it anyway. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. And if I'm wrong, feel free to just jump in and say, Jack, you're a quack. That's totally wrong. So there you go. And so then we got Virt Manager, which is cool. I'm glad that's in there. And then Xfce Terminal. Virtual Machine Manager, that installed really easily. And some Arch distros, even like Arco Linux, it's a little more difficult to install Virt Manager. You got to kind of manually put in all the different dependencies yourself. But this looks like it kind of just did it all. So that's cool. I like that. And then here's our settings. So here we got our About Me, which I like seeing on an Xfce release. Sometimes the About Me is not always there, and you have to install it separately if you know what you're looking for. And there's where you can change your avatar if you want a new face icon other than the generic one. And then here's our appearance, and it looks like Adwaited Dark is our default theme, and then Papyrus Dark is our default, which is also good. It looks pretty nice. They didn't really put a bunch of stuff in there for theming, so that way you can just go out to xfce-look.org and get your own and pimp it the way you like, but it looks great right out of the box. And then here under Compositor, I'm just going to back off the opacity like I do in every video. I like the opacity during move. So that was under Window Manager Tweaks. That's kind of nice. I like that tweak. And then here's our Add Remove Software again, login window. So if you want to go in here and change your login window, you can just open this guy up here, and then you got your background settings for your login and anything you want to change, your theme and so forth. And then you can tweak your users here to allow for manual login and so forth for other users. And then you can even activate the numlock on login. So that's kind of handy. You can kind of turn that on when you log in. That's pretty cool. Of course, there is another numlock under your keyboard. And this is typically where I change my numlock settings, is to restore the numlock state on startup. So that way if I turn on my numlock, it'll stay on the next time you start up. And so that's another way to do it. Or if you turn off your num lock, it'll turn it off the next time you start, or it'll stay off. Now we got file manager settings. That's another thing I like to tweak in here. So if I go over to format, under date, I like to add the time in there or something that's created today. That's just something that I like. And I like that double click is on there, so that's good. Sometimes that's turned off in some distros. And then on our right click, got lots of stuff in here. Open Thunar as root, that's cool. And then arrange your desktop and your display settings for desktop. Nice, and here comes a bunch of wallpapers. Sweet. That's a cool one there, wow. I like that. That looks like a favorite already, and it was the first one I clicked. Cool. That could be, wow, that looks a lot like the mothership I mean, you didn't hear that. And then we got this cool Aurora Dragon and the Black Eagle. I remember that from a previous Garuda. That is cool too. Really nice looking wallpapers. There's a cool array of colors, and that is cool. Looks like a CPU fan, like up close, and then with the light turned off. Nice. And a lot of cubes, and then they're lit up, and then with a red tint and an eagle. Nice, which is appropriate for Garuda. Loving it. Really cool dragon there. And there's another eagle in a tree. Just a beautiful selection of wallpaper. A lot to choose from. Really a tough call. Nice. There's a nice shot of an eagle there. And that's really cool. That's a contender as well. Then we got the beautiful sunset, and I like that. That is like pretty wild. Very cool tiling there and sunset. Yes. I don't know. Oh, there we go. That is cool. I like that. I think I might go with the purple here. This is cool. Yes, we have a winner. And, well, then again, look at that one. I love those cards. Nice. The dragon colored one was cool too, but I'm going to stay with the cards, I think. So now we really have a winner. And here's our desktop settings. And so typically I keep these all at their defaults, and then your default icons, that all looks good too. So there you go. I like that too. And then down here, of course, we have our settings here on the bottom panel, and then there's our log out and log in and so forth over there on the left side, right side. And then here's our pinned applications and our file manager, which we're running Thunar, of course. And these all look pretty nice. By default, it's all not too crowded. All our typical default folders, very good. And then down here on our panel, of course, we got semi-transparency in the panel. I like that. So that's really cool how that is adjusted as well. And I was trying to right click on the panel to adjust the settings, but seems like I can't for some reason. That's kind of weird. So I'm just going to go up here and go into my settings and then just click on panel so I can get to my panel settings that way. Not really quite sure why I can't right click. That might just be some kind of quirk there. And then there's our dark mode settings. We're already in dark mode, so it really didn't make any difference. But if you're using a light theme and you wanted your panel to be dark and your menu, that's where you can switch that on and get that part of it dark. And then of course these are all our panel items here on our panel down below. So there you got our whisker menu, and all the different things that you see down here are noted right here in the items list. And this is where you can add and remove them or just move them around. Very cool. So we'll close that out, and then we can see this stuff a little better. So let's open up our terminal here, and I'm just look at our kernel. And yes, it is 5.15.34-1 LTS. Cool. And we run neofetch, and then we can see all the good stuff here. So running Garuda on a Dell, and our bash 5.1.16 shell, and then our resolution Xfce 4.16 and Xfce 4 or Xfce WM for our window manager, and then we're running our Adwaita theme, and just a really nice looking neofetch too. That's beautiful in classic Garuda style. So yes, wow. So there you can see that it's on real hardware, and so I'm really glad I installed this on this machine. I think this is going to be really nice. I'm going to run this a while and just kind of play with it because I want to see more with this Garuda Xfce. And I can see why Mustafa was really impressed with this, even though I don't have NVIDIA on here to compare that part of it. The rest of it just looks fantastic, and Xfce looks so great. I know back in the day, Xfce was always getting this rap that Xfce is just so old looking and plain and dull. But when you see a distro like this, it really takes Xfce to a new level. They really know how at Garuda to take a distro and just make it look beautiful. These people have really great taste, and I gotta say a lot for the Garuda team. They are a really amazing group of developers. I think they've been able to find a lot of talent from every aspect when it comes from programming to artistic nuances. They got it all. So yes, is Garuda the bomb like Mustafa said, or is it just a bomb? Well, let's ask the Linux gods. Oh, great Linux gods, is this the bomb or not? Well, there you go. It is the bomb. Yes, awesome. So, now that we got that out of the way, would I recommend it? Absolutely I would. In fact, I'm probably going to keep it on this computer because I've used a lot of different Arch distros, and some I like better than others. I know some of my top ones are Endeavor OS and Arco and Garuda, of course. And so Garuda is something that I've liked right from the beginning. It's actually a distro that I discovered back when I first started doing my videos on YouTube. And it was a favorite right then, and it's been a favorite ever since. And it's something that I really don't run into problems with, especially on the Xfce side. If you're running something that's a little bit older, maybe not necessarily a really old computer, but just something that's older, maybe a couple years old, and doesn't have a whole lot of RAM and stuff in it, I think Xfce is a great choice. And if you got a really super powerful computer with a gigantic processor and a gazillion gigs of RAM, then I would run Xfce anyways, because then it'll be superhero fast. So absolutely, if you haven't tried out Garuda and you're an Xfce fan and you want to use Xfce with an LTS kernel, then this is the way to go. And of course, you can always upgrade the kernel easily using their utilities or just the console. But personally, I would stick with the LTS. I like that. I think running LTS is really smart, especially on Arch. So I think I'm going to keep it just the way it is. And with that, I hope this review was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.